For this problem, we want to raise any kind of powers that we have. We want to do that first. And then from there, we're going to subtract the exponents. So the first part, we've got -6 to the third. And so that's if whenever you have a negative number raised to an odd power, it's going to stay negative. So this is going to be -216 x to the 6th. And then each of these, we're going to distribute the power inside each of those. You can use the product raised to a power rule for that. That allows us to do that one. Okay, so now we have that on the top and on the bottom. 7 squared is 49. X we have by itself, and then we have y to the 8, and then z to 9. Okay, now when you have multiple variables like this, you could do this separately and take the top power minus the bottom one, and you could do all that separately. But instead, one rule that you can do here is just take the highest power minus the lowest power, and wherever the highest power is, that's where you're going to put your answer. For example, here, I'm going to put -216 on top and then 49 on the bottom. And we want to see where we put this top or bottom. For this x here, 6 minus 1 is 5. Since the larger number is on top, that's where we're going to put our answer there, x to the 5th. But this next one, the highest power is on the bottom, 8. 8 minus 2 is 6. But since the larger power is in the bottom, I'm going to put y to the 6th on the bottom there. This I have 9 minus 2 is 7. Since the larger power is on the bottom, that's where I'm going to put my answer. So I'm going to put 7, z to the 7th. So that's an easier way to do that instead of subtracting each of these, then changing them into negative exponents, putting the fraction back together. This will be an easier way of doing it. Just take the highest power minus the lowest one, and then put the answer wherever the higher power actually is. And that's what you want to do on this kind of problem. Let's apply the same principle to this problem here. First, we take care of the exponents and we raise everything to the powers. -5 cubed, since again, we have a negative number raised to an odd power. That means this is going to be -125. If this was a even power, that means this number would be positive. But since there's a negative being raised to an odd power, we get -125. Then you have x to the 8. And then each of these, we're squaring it. So we have y squared, z squared. On the bottom, you have 6 squared, which is 36. You have x, and then y to the 8th, and then z to the 5th power. Like we did before on the previous problem, what we're going to do is take the highest power minus the lower power. And I meant to do this on the last problem, but if you see x with no power there, I should point out that's going to be x to the 1 if you don't see any power there. So for the x's, we're going to do the highest power minus the lowest. We have 8 minus 1 is 7. And I'm going to put the x on the top because that's where the higher power of x was on the top. These I'm going to subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6. And I'll put that on the bottom because that's where the higher power of y is. Then for the z's, I have 5 minus 2, the highest power minus the lowest power, and that's 3. But I'm putting this on the bottom again because that's where the higher power of z is, and the fraction does not reduce, so that would be your final answer.